You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to another Colts Blue Zone podcast. Alongside Joe Hopkins, I'm Dave Griffiths. Mike Chappell, just too busy for us. He is working on content for Fox59.com, CBS4Indy.com. Encourage you to head online and check out Mike's work. He's been hard at it every day of camp. A couple of stories on days off. Joe, he takes no days off.
He takes no days off. Man, his stories must be pretty darn good, missing the podcast. So go check them out. I edit most of them, and I can attest they are fabulous.
All right, we'll talk 38 days until the Colts season opener, 9 days until their preseason opener. We have latest buzz from training camp. We finally have some meat and potatoes to talk about here after actually last week we had 2 days of helmets only. Now we have a bunch of full pad practices, a couple shells as well. I mean, we've seen actual football out there over the past couple days to offer some analysis, offer some observations and all that. We'll today discuss players on the roster bubble. Those are really the players that are under the microscope this time of year. There's a lot of guys that you know are going to be on this team. You know what their roles are going to be. But there are some that are hoping to make a role for themselves or to earn a role for themselves. And the way I have it right now, Joe, like I kind of keep my Colts depth chart here from year to year. I have it. There's about 40 to 43 right around there. I think guys that are kind of locked into the roster. So, and that's being conservative. It could be a little bit higher than that. But there are some that I don't want to say for sure when that were quite this early. Just want to leave a little bit of room for what's it called? Just for the unknown, I guess, with some of them. But that's probably how it is on most teams around the league. You have a good 40 to 45 guys that you know are going to be on your 53, and those bottom 8 to 10 spots are up for grabs right now.
Especially teams that are trying to contend. You know, maybe a few rebuilding teams. There's a lot more up in the air. The Colts think they're really close to something special. They should have been a playoff team last year. They have higher aspirations this year, and so they got a lot of guys that they already like. But there are some guys who we think can surprise some people and make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk notable veterans who might get cut, 3 long shots that might make the team as well, kind of give our thoughts on those 2 areas. But first, we'll start with the news around the league. And it certainly was an eventful week, as it's going to be every week from now on. Not that it hasn't been throughout the offseason, but hey, with today being Thursday in the preseason, just beginning with the Hall of Fame game, I mean, it's going to be nonstop. And we kind of got a taste of that with continuing the Deshaun Watson saga. He has been suspended 6 games by Judge Sue Robinson. It was Robinson's first case being a jointly appointed by the league and NFL Players Association as the disciplinary officer. She had definitely some scathing words for Deshaun Watson in her decision. She described his behavior as, quote, more egregious than any before reviewed by the NFL. And then she also said that it's still like it was because it was a, quote, non-violent, unquote, act, that there was a certain kind of limit that she saw within the NFL's rules and the NFLPA's rules that she could not go past the 6-game suspension, because that matches others in the past that have even been violent occurrences. You think back to the Ray Rice scenario years ago, that were much different. I'll just put it that way. It's much different. But the NFL is appealing the decision, Joe. So it's something that's not going to end still anytime soon. If this appeal, and the NFL I think wants a full season long ban.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and so here we are with a neutral arbiter who has been appointed by both sides, gives a ruling. The NFL has the rights to appeal it, and so they're going to. And Roger Goodell has the choice who's going to hear the appeal. So it's basically the NFL saying, "No, we're going to appeal this decision. I get to appoint who the judge is going to be this time." And if it comes back, which it very well might be a year, because that's what we think the NFL wants, this is going to go even further to federal court or something like that. It's going to be a whole lot more than just a neutral arbiter in front of you. It's going to be a federal judge that's sitting on this case. So there's a chance, and I think that at the way it looks right now, a good one, that this will not be resolved by the first game of the season. I really think that this is going to straggle into at least the start of the year, just because things like this don't wrap up all that quickly.
Yeah, and this kind of being the first case by Sue Robinson and with the jointly appointed disciplinary officer, it's really setting precedent for how disciplinary, hearings and actions and punishments are going to going forward, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know what happens if the NFL comes back and says a year, and then Watson and the NFLPA sue. Does Watson get to play while that's going on until does he have to do the 6 games until there's a decision? I have no idea what happens.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I wouldn't be surprised if he would sit out the first 6 games. I also wouldn't be surprised if he plays. But that would be a situation that, to me, would be a lot like last year. And Houston decided to sit him for the entire year while things were working out. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns decide to sit him out while this is going on. Because if it lasts that far into the season, like a month and a half, 6 games, I think that they'll be able to expedite things a little bit quicker than that. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off, but just based on what I've seen in the past.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just want this to be done and over with.
That'd
at
be
this
great.
point.
That would be great.
So we can stop talking about it, especially since it matters to the Colts because the Cleveland Browns are certainly a playoff contender that the Colts might be fighting for
Very
a wild
much on
card
the Colts'
spot.
same level. They are
Yeah.
When you look at a national perspective, the Browns and the Colts are like this. They are together. They are below the teams that everyone thinks are definite playoff teams. You've got your Chargers, you've got your Bengals, you've got your Buffalo Bills, you've got your Chiefs, you've got your Patriots who were there last year. Like, the Colts are below all those teams that were playoff teams, and maybe they're even below a team like the Broncos that got a Russell Wilson.
Ravens.
That people think definitely below the Ravens, below the Raiders. They're on the group that is trying to work its way up, seeing into the playoff picture, and of course for the Colts, it starts with winning their division because that I think would be the easiest way to do so. But nevertheless, this is a team that is on the Colts level. So any advantage you have if you're a Colts fan over a team that is kind of you view on as kind of your level would be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I kind of agree on the NFL side. I think a year sounds about right for Deshaun. I didn't think the 6 weeks was nearly enough for what the judge said was the more egregious than any other reviewed by the NFL. So we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, it's kind of uncharted territory at this point.
Yeah, it goes into exactly what the rules are for the NFLPA and the NFL and the player conduct policy and how they're written. Because, obviously there's already been there's no criminal charges that have been brought against Deshaun Watson, but so you can't make any kind of ruling based on that. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this. All it is to say that it is still going on right now. So anyway, the NFL has also stripped the Miami Dolphins of their 2023 first-round pick and a 2024 third-round pick for, quote, violating the integrity of the game. And this has to do with owner Stephen Ross getting impermissible communication, or the franchise having impermissible communications with Tom Brady over a course of a couple years, and also with Sean Payton for their potential head coaching position. And this has nothing to do with the accusations that Brian Flores had against them, that they were trying to tank. There was nothing ever found out definite about those allegations. So this is strictly having to do with impermissible communications with players on other teams. And this is a hefty shot, Joe, to the Dolphins, because they were set up next year with 2 first-round picks. And so that gives them ammo to move up in the draft if they wanted to move on from Tua Tagovailoa and try to get one of the top guys, maybe a Bryce, maybe a CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or whoever it might be if they eyed somebody else. Now, like just with 1 first-round pick, that makes it a whole lot tougher for them to do what they wanted to do, and they were set up to do nicely next year in the draft. And if they didn't, hey, you think Tua's good, you have 2 first-round picks that you could have added to them. This kind of sets them back a little bit in their plans.
Yeah, anytime you take a first-round pick away from a team, that's a big deal. I mean, we see the kind of players first-round picks draw. Was it a first-round pick and a second-round pick for Devontae Adams is what the Raiders did? So
I think so.
A first-round pick can get you and a little more as well, and they lost a little more. They lost the first and the third. That something like that can get you a star wide receiver, a game changer in this league, and that's something they just lost. So this is another thing that kind of indirectly impacts the Colts, because this is another AFC team with a lot of talent that's hoping to establish themselves as playoff worthy.
Wasn't it the first and the third is what it turned out to be, what the Colts gave up for Carson Wentz?
It was.
So there we go. You could get Carson Wentz
someone you think could be a franchise quarterback.
Hey, if you ask me, not if you ask anybody else in this town, but if you ask me, I had to throw that out there, obviously, no doubt. Let's see here. Roger Goodell says in this instance, investigators found tampering violations of unprecedented score and severity. So that's not good for the Dolphins. So they're also their owner is suspended for the first 6 games. He can't go to any games. He's also fined $1.5 million.
Same amount of games as Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, okay. How about that? All right. Roster moves for the Colts. They have re-signed undrafted defensive tackle Kavion Patton. He's already been cut and re-signed. Joe, I was talking to Chap about this actually just out of camp today. Like, there's those guys that seems like they're cut and re-signed 6 times over the course of training camp. Those guys at the very bottom of the 90-man roster.
We don't love you, but we like you.
Exactly. You kind of like don't move out of town, but we don't have room for you right now on the roster.
Yeah.
So just chill out there for a minute. Maybe you're going to have to check back in here to the team hotel in a couple days,
Get him an Airbnb or something.
Seriously, yeah, make sure he doesn't go too far. The Colts have also signed center Alex Smollett, a free agent out of Marshall in 2020, rookie then, so 2 years ago. They've also signed a wide receiver with a J as an initial, but it is not OBJ. It is DJ Montgomery, undrafted in 2019. He played 3 games for the Jets last season. He caught 3 balls. So if you're looking for a veteran wide receiver, Joe, I guess he's technically an NFL veteran, but only 3 catches in his veteran career.
Yeah, no offense to Montgomery or Millette, but these kind of seem like guys where they just need bodies.
And they moved guard Carter O'Donnell and wide receiver John Hurt to injured reserve. O'Donnell was probably in the mix maybe to be like a second-team guy. Could have been in the mix for a backup role, reserve role on the offensive line. But if he's going to be on IR, probably not. Released a veteran defensive end, Brian Cox Jr. as well. So all those moves are going to be, you're going to see these every week with injuries, specifically with injuries, with guys going on IR or getting released and getting signed here and there. So just be prepared for that over the coming weeks as we continue on through training camp as the regular season gets close. The Colts have named a new team physician, Dr. Peter Myers of Fort Sports Medicine. Their previous doctor stepped down last week after 23 years with the team. Dr. Myers, a 15-year knee and hip specialist. He has served the Colts for 12 years. Last year, you would have wanted a foot specialist, but apparently they go with knee and hip there with Dr. Myers. So good luck to him in his career with the Colts in the future. Training camp practice for Sunday, August 7th, already sold out. It was the only remaining weekend practice, so no surprise to see that happen. Joe, being out there, there's been a tremendous groundswell of fans, like every day out there. Today maybe a little bit less because the weather wasn't quite as nice. It was actually turned out really good. Like there was clouds over the entire time. It was much better than yesterday, which was like 95, 100 degrees, and the sun was baking down on you. But yeah, so there have been a lot of fans, what I'm trying to say, every day out there in Westfield.
It almost looks like preseason game type turnout out there.
For some teams, it would be.
Yeah, exactly. I see videos of other teams like Washington and stuff, and they got maybe like 36 people out there. The Colts, it's like a whole event. There's a lot of hype around this team. I mean, let's not forget, for a significant portion down the middle stretch of the season, they were the team no one wanted to play. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it fell off at the end of last year. They replaced the quarterback, and there's so much hype around this team right now. Hopefully, they'll be able to stay level-headed and live up to those expectations.
As I mentioned earlier, preseason kicks off tonight with a Hall of Fame game. It is Jacksonville and Las Vegas. If you'd said that 20 years ago, Jacksonville and Las Vegas, that'd be
where?
Exactly. Well, exactly. Well, I guess. Hang on, Jacksonville's been a franchise now since, 95? So
30 years ago.
Exactly. There we go, 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. Jacksonville and Las Vegas. There we go, in the Hall of Fame game. And the Colts' first preseason game set for Saturday, August 13th at Buffalo. So it's here.
Under one starter plays tonight.
Shoot, man. Like, I was listening to somebody on the radio. Yeah, exactly. Earlier today, I was like, this is an extra game anyway for these guys. Like, I would take the under maybe in there. Yeah. Like, seriously, the only way
starting
that you have
kickers.
quote unquote starters playing is if you have kickers, punters, long snappers. They'll be in there. Like if you have rookies maybe that are in line to start, like with the Colts, for example, you probably want Alec Pierce to get a little bit of preseason work, I think. And you definitely want guys like Alec Ogletree and Jelani Woods to get some preseason work. But those guys are going to see some play this year. They may even get a couple starts depending on whatever formation the Colts decide to try it out there. So that's just me kind of being... And Nick Cross, again, another one that you're definitely going to want to see some work out of Nick Cross in the preseason. He could win a starting job by the end. So, like, none of your established starters. That number is absolute 0.
Well, and especially in a game where most teams have 3 preseason games now. This is these teams' 4th,
right?
If I understand that correctly.
I believe so.
No sense in risking anybody getting hurt. And I feel like that's been more of a trend over the past 10 years. Just
really
guys,
the past 3 years, it's gone like to nothing.
Yeah, guys just getting nothing in the preseason. We don't need it. Peyton Manning used to do 3 series, something like that. Nowadays, I don't think he'd even touch the football.
No,
At
I
least
don't
not
think so.
not while the clock is ticking.
No way. Absolute no way. So there we go. Preseason kicking off tonight, and the Colts will be on the field shortly.
Still going to watch it, though.
No doubt. What does Hancock Health's membership in the Mayo Clinic Care Network mean for you? It means our independent health network now has access to the knowledge and resources of the world leader in medicine. It means your Hancock Health doctor can now consult with Mayo Clinic specialists to confirm a diagnosis or treatment plan. And it means that together we're making health possible for you. Learn more about our new clinical collaboration at hancockregional.org/Mayo Clinic.
Wow. Nailed the first ad read.
That's
Dave.
how we do. That's how we do. Making money. Dollar bills, y'all.
That's right. I'm not making money, but at least
somebody's making money.
We get to keep our
us.
jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
that's
making
tremendous.
somebody money.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody's smiling at us. So training camp buzz from the past week or so. Let's see what has stood out to me this week. Today, first of all, as we've taped this podcast on Thursday, it was a very physical day. It was a long day, so it was like an hour and 55 minutes is what it was scheduled for. And there were a lot of practices earlier, Joe, that were shorter, like an hour and 15, an hour 20, that were even cut short because they made their way really quickly through the 7-on-7, through the 11-on-11 drills. And that's something that, talking to Frank Reich, that's something that Matt Ryan has really kind of been foremost important in doing, is working his way quickly through plays, getting on to the next one, being efficient at one, getting on to the other kind of type of tempo that he wants to run during training camp that Ryan is comfortable with. So we've seen a lot of that over the first couple of days, but today was much longer. It was much more... They were certainly intense because it was a full padded practice today. They did also a lot of situational stuff with some 2-minute drill at the end. They did red zone a whole lot today. So today was a day to get more physical, and that's what it has to be now, because the first week you're kind of working your way up. You're taking small steps to get to quote unquote football, but football is actually here right now, and we can actually learn a little bit specifically about offensive and defensive line, kind of the trenches, which are for the Colts probably supposed to be some of their best groups for this year.
I'm not out there, but from I'm reading every single tweet that I can. From everything I've read, it's been really physical this past week in training camp. I think pads went on for the first time, or full pads at least, on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. There's already some punches thrown. Michael Pittman Jr. getting into that. I'm not sure. Did you have your eyes on that?
I didn't see it myself. I had literally just walked down to the other side of the field, but it was Pittman and Rodney McLeod, the safety out of who was in Philly last year, just got into it. And we've seen this from Pitt in the past, too. He was kicked out of a game last year. I forget which game. Okay, it was the Patriots game. Fortunately, didn't need him for the rest of that game. But I think we might have even seen it like kind of a scuffle in training camp last year with him too. I can't remember for sure, but it seems to ring a bell. He's edgy. He really is, and you love that to a point. And that's what Frank Reich said the other day after it happened. They love who Pittman is as a receiver. They love his attitude. They love his competitive fire. But there is a line that you don't want to cross, and I think throwing haymakers at your teammate is that line. You know, like you can get physical with someone. You can probably even have strong disagreements after that play. But there is something to the actual act of kind of going hog wild a little bit,
a little push and party.
Exactly. Like that's something that is probably over the line for them, and I'll bet he got a little bit of a talking to out there.
Yeah, and there's always one, right? There's always at least one dust up in training camp.
I mean, shoot, the Lions are coming later. There's going to be something with them for sure, because they're supposed to be biting everybody's kneecaps off. There's going to be something that goes down.
That's right. So hopefully at least Colts, in terms of teammate on teammate fights, this was kind of the one where it happens and everybody reminds themselves that we can't be doing that type of thing. But in terms of, being an edgy player, I really like that out of your 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver who is not afraid to be physical. I mean, there's some guys who just because they have the size doesn't mean they completely use it to their advantage. I heard Pittman is really starting to connect with Matt Ryan recently, making some tough grabs over the middle, where at the beginning in camp we kind of heard more about Paris Campbell and Matt Ryan and their connection. So, it doesn't sound like anybody got too hurt out of that. So hopefully they can kind of make amends and move forward. What else has stood out to you?
Yeah, with the pads coming on this week, that goes straight to Pittman's strength, being more of a physical receiver. So I think that's why this week he's really taking a step up. And before Campbell, his strength is shiftiness, and so that's why he was.
That's a good point.
Yeah, he had kind of the leg up in things looking with Matt Ryan last week. Other things that stood out, like let's stay on the offense for a second with the receivers because that has been a point of contention for throughout the year.
Let's talk about because I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid.
Of course, like I really like what Alec Pierce has done out there, and I don't want to I don't want to start waving the flag so crazily in here and completely go against basically everything I've said throughout the offseason. If you listen to our podcast, you can download, by the way, subscribe, guys, delivered to your podcast listening device throughout the week. Follow us on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone as well. I've said throughout the offseason that Alec Pierce needs a defined role, needs a small role in order to be at his best this year. They can't give him too much and expect him to deliver in every facet that a veteran wide receiver will be able to deliver. That being said, he has looked really good in training camp. I think he has good hands. He has good quickness. He's done pretty well on the line of scrimmage, getting away from press coverage. And he can, in the basketball term, he can jump out of the gym. He can. Like, his leaping ability is quite good.
40-inch vert at the combine.
If you're there and you see it, it's different than other players out there. And that's kind of something that stands out is among these guys who are the elite of the elite at what they do, like what stands out, what looks different. And Alec Pierce's jumping ability is different. So he can go up and get a ball and high point it as well or better than anybody. And that's something that we've said was obviously a good strength of Pittman, being a good 50-50 ball guy, going up and getting it over the years. I think Pierce can at least go up. Whether he can come down with it, that remains to be seen consistently, obviously. Exactly. But boy, he has the physical tools to be really good. So maybe I'm a little bit more bullish on Alec Pierce this year than I was at the start of training camp because I think he's turned a couple heads out there.
And that's what you have to see, right?
Yeah.
A rookie can show you everything in college and all the athletic testing, but what really matters is when they get out there. You got to hope he builds on this going into the preseason because you remember it was Mike Strawn last year who was tearing it up during training camp, and then we didn't see a whole lot out of him. I do think clearly Michael Pierce is further, or Alec Pierce. I always want to call him Michael Pierce. I don't know why. Alec Pierce is further along than a guy who went to Charleston, sat out the year before because of COVID. A couple of things I've seen from him. I mean, that highlight the Colts posted about him shaking Isaiah Rodgers at the line of scrimmage, streaking down the field, and Isaiah Rodgers has 4.2 speed. He ran a 4.2 at his pro day, and Pierce just kept going and maintained the separation. He's got that kind of different level speed as well, which is so impressive for a guy who's also 6'3", completes the play, scores a touchdown for 40 yards. It was hard to tell from the angle, but that, and then Mike Chappell wrote an article yesterday about how the Colts have Stephon Gilmore basically shadowing Pierce, lining up on him quite a bit just to get him ready for what he's going to see in the NFL. Really a technically sound cornerback, a guy who's been named the best defensive player in the NFL, who won that award. And I think that's only going to pay off for Pierce to get him ready in year one by playing against that quality of a cornerback.
Gilmore looks perfectly fine, by the way. Training camp buzz around Gilmore, I mean, he may be 31 years old, but he hasn't looked like he's lost a step. Like, he's not the quickest guy out there or the fastest or the shiftiest, but he always seems to be in the right place. You never see him chasing the ball or chasing a receiver. He anticipates throws well, so he's typically right in the catch zone, whether he breaks up the play or not, makes an immediate tackle, whatever it might be. So I think he's looked very solid. And being on a one-year contract, if he delivers as he has in training camp, obviously, then somebody might give him a 2 or 3 year deal down the road.
I think we got him for 2.
2? Okay. Here's me shutting up.
I think it's 2 for 24.
I was thinking of Unique. Sorry,
Yes.
I was thinking of Ngakoue, who only got the 1 year. But yeah, it was Gilmore for 2 years. So that's awesome. That if he can deliver like he has now over the course of 2 years, I think you'd be very happy. I've seen a lot of good things out of him in training camp.
Speaking of being in the right place, I remember there was a quote from Chap's article about Pierce talking about Gilmore already knowing the routes he's going to run just based on alignment. He says, by the way you line up, I knew what you're going to do, and they talk about it after the play. That obviously that's great for both players, right? It's great because Gilmore looks like what we thought he was when they signed him, and it's great for Pierce to learn the kind of things to maybe be able to fool cornerbacks on other teams.
I think the best player on defense, certainly today, and maybe over the course of all training camp, has been DeForest Buckner. He's been a monster out there, especially today. And that's maybe in part because earlier he wasn't doing as much 11-on-11 out there, individual drills. They were kind of bringing him along slowly. But he was full go today and was in the backfield all the time, all the stinking time. So he looked great. And talking to Gus Bradley today, he kind of echoed that, saying it's good for him and for the guys behind him who are going to have to learn how to play behind him in this system, and everyone alongside him as well. So seeing Buckner out there, he has not lost a single step. I think he could still be a force under Bradley as well as he was before under Matt Eberflus.
Is he lining up across from Pinter quite a bit? He's usually the left of the two defensive tackles, right?
Yes, so it has been mostly over Pinter. And my story today is actually on Danny Pinter that I'm putting together online. And on air for Fox 59. So yeah, Pinter's getting a heck of a test out there, going up against Buckner every play. Obviously, he's faced him before, just being a reserve on the line. Every once in a while, you come in, and when he's filled in for Ryan Kelly at center, he's had to face him then. But yeah, that's another example of a guy kind of like Alec Pierce and Stephon Gilmore. A guy like Bernard Ryman going up against Yannick Ngakoue from time to time. Like these guys who are maybe asking to do the next step, like a Danny Pinter is to be a starting role. He has a heck of a guy across him to test his mettle every day.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one better to practice against because most teams are going up against are not going to have a DeForest Buckner. So that next guy might actually feel like a relief compared to who you're practicing against.
Yep. Julian Blackmon has looked perfectly recovered, by the way. Like he's been on a couple of good deflections. He's stuck his nose into places, like he's made some hits. They go, ooh, and or he's kind of gotten into awkward falls. They look a little awkward because people aren't trying to hit sometimes, but you do. So you just fall weirdly, but he gets up, does the incomplete motion, just runs back to the defense. So nothing bad at all with Julian Blackmon with his Achilles tear from last year.
I'm excited about the safety tandem. I know Blackmon, it was another one of the highlights that the Colts posted, but he comes streaking towards the sideline and breaks up a pass, I think intended for Nyheim Hines, and it ends up being like this huge collision with someone who's kind of coming up the field. And it's every year when I first start watching football again, those collisions just make me wince. I'm not used to it like I am in February when I'm like, get up, you're fine. So it's always a sigh of relief to see somebody, especially coming back from injury, just pop right back up like he does.
Let's get to some more training camp observations. We haven't seen any of Shaquille Leonard out there yet. Well, we have seen him. He's just not dressed for anything. He's in his relaxing gear on the sidelines, or really. Not really as much on the sideline. Sometimes he's out on the field running back and forth and chanting it up, as you would expect the maniac to do. Let's see, some other stuff. Let's talk tight ends. Today, Drew Ogletree was getting some run with the ones. And talking to Marcus Brady after practice, he said that's a little bit of a rotational thing, that he's getting up there over Jelani Woods and Mo Alley Cox. But I think Ogletree has earned that right, too. Like, he's playing with the ones because he's had a pretty good camp. And as the guy who's the 6th-round pick tight end, certainly the Colts drafted Jelani Woods.
Yorktown State.
Yeah, out of Youngstown State. And, they drafted Jelani Woods in the 3rd round because they believe he can be a difference maker. But Drew Ogletree as well, looks pretty good. He made a spectacular one-handed catch in the end zone today. I hope the Colts got that. One of their many photographers out there, because it was obviously in the time that we're not allowed to shoot video anymore in 7-on-7 drills. So I anticipate somebody got that. So that might be finding its way to Twitter later today. But it was a heck of a grab by him from Matt Ryan in playing with the first team in 7-on-7. He made another one that was over by the sideline that he stretched for the end zone. He might have made it. I don't know. It was a really close play at least. But I think Ogletree has looked good. Mo Alley Cox, I think they say he's injured a little bit, so they're holding him back a bit in the first team and in 11-on-11.
Something minor, probably.
Yeah, I think he had a collision with Gilmore a couple days ago too, so maybe it was something with that. Was it Gilmore? I think it was Gilmore.
I think it was. I think I saw some tweets about that.
So, but Gilmore was back today and looked fine. So maybe just Mo got the worst of that for whatever reason. Excuse me. So I think Drew Ogletree's looked good. Let's see. Left tackle. Matt Pryor's out there going up against Yannick Ngakoue, which is no easy task. Play after play, but it's been all Pryor. We have seen zero of Bernard Rabin with the first team, Joe. So it's Matt Pryor's job right now. There's no indication that Ryman is working his way into that at all. I think he really does still have a ways to go. But we haven't seen Ryman anywhere else, though, either. They haven't moved him inside, to right guard or left guard or whatever. So they're really sticking him out there. I think they're really trying to get him to learn left tackle if they believe he has a shot at being a left tackle in the future. But right now, there's no sign of him trying to move inside and being part of the quote-unquote top 5 and supplanting Danny Pinter. And there's really no shot for Ryman to be the starting left tackle at this point of training camp.
Yeah, it would have been very surprising from a guy.
Totally. Smaller
school, Central Michigan, just, I think this is just his third year playing the position of tackle. So this was kind of expected. They kind of took him for his upside. There's not a lot of guys at his size who have his movement ability. And being so young in the game, they thought, there might be a much higher ceiling to reach. Let's remember, this was just a third-round pick. If this was someone they thought could be a legit starting left tackle right off the bat, he probably would have went first round. And if not, the Colts would have taken him in the second round.
So after that, running game is really hard to tell during training camp because you don't run to tackle. So there's no end of the play like that, and that's everything in the run game. It's breaking tackles, it's shedding blocks, and it's all that. So
I heard Hines is being very involved in the passing game.
Very involved for sure. Like he's working with the wide receivers. It seems like just as often he's working with the running backs. So they're going to get him out there, and he's going to catch balls for sure. So that's the one observation I can give you for the running backs. It's hard to give you anything for Jonathan Taylor. He looks fine. Yeah, he looks fine.
You tell me he hasn't fallen off since last year?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's been any significant fall off. So that's really the whole offense. Like Matt Ryan has been good so far. Has been, like I said earlier, kind of making sure the tempo is up to pace, is throwing the ball efficiently. At the start of camp, there were a lot more checkdowns. Now there have been a couple more down the field, I think, to wide receivers that they've tried to get to. Foles is good as a backup. There's nothing significant that I can say either way about. I don't think about quarterback right now. What you have is you have a guy in Matt Ryan who has taken charge for sure of the offense, and he's running it the way he wants to. So there seems to be no real hiccups on his end that he's taken over, and he's full speed ahead, ready to go.
Yeah, and speaking of Foles, I saw that pass he hit to Ashton Dulin, who, by all accounts, has a very good camp. Your boy,
yeah,
Ashton Dulin, and I didn't get to listen to the whole interview, but Chris Ballard was on the Pat McAfee show today, kind of talking up Ogletree and Dulin, and saying those guys are performing really well. Because Pat was asking him about those wide receivers, and McAfee's not been shy about advocating for guys like Julio Jones to bring in, Odell Beckham, who there's rumors flying right now, but really nothing substantial to report on that. Just kind of internet rumors at the moment. But if guys like Pierce and Dulin can step up, and Paris, I know it's a huge if, can stay healthy. Obviously, we all think Pittman Jr. is a good wide receiver who has the chance to be a very, very good wide receiver. I think this receiving core, especially if they mix in Hines in a more effective way than they did last year, has a chance to be, everyone thinks it's probably back of the pack compared to the rest of the NFL. I think productivity-wise, maybe it could be more towards the middle, a solid group that they can really rely upon down the year.
Yep, I think we've talked about just about every group a little bit here and there. I haven't talked too much about the secondary yet. But yeah, I talked about Gilmore plenty. I think Faison is on the outside. He's been with the ones virtually the whole time. I haven't seen a ton of Rodgers in 11-on-11 with the ones. So that seems to be how it is right now.
And he knows Bradley's scheme. He's familiar with it, so that's not surprising.
Yeah, he has a definite leg up. I think that for Rodgers to really take over more of a role, he's going to have to do it in the regular season. He's probably going to have to get out there and make a few highlight-worthy plays and earn more playing time that way. Or Faison just going to have to get beat a couple times, which you certainly don't want that to happen. You say, well, we'll try this guy again. So I think that's going to be the path to seeing more Isaiah Rodgers, is just doing dynamic things in his limited time on the field, which he has the ability to do. We've seen that in the past. Or for Faison to just get out there and kind of fold under pressure, which, I don't know, I haven't seen anything specific to make me think that he would do that anyway. So we'll just see what happens out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the point is the Colts are in a good spot because they have 4 cornerbacks that you feel pretty good about.
Yeah, I agree. There are not a lot of teams in the NFL that feel as good about their cornerbacks as the Colts do. There are some, for sure, here or there, but they're in the top half of the league for sure. When you have a little bit of depth there that you feel okay about, you're like, okay, we can trot that guy out. We'll see how he does. And of course, if anything, knock on wood, were to happen to Kenny, Isaiah would kind of slide in there to the slot and be that guy.
Kenny or any of them, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and let's not forget he's going to impact the game as a kick returner as well.
Yep, for sure. And he looks good on kick return, man. Like that's a flash. He's gone. I
Down the
love
field.
watching him on kick return. So.
Changing games.
Yep.
What would you call a great health system just a few minutes down the road from Indianapolis, where you can see some of the area's top doctors and healthcare teams in great facilities, including one of the safest hospitals in America, and maybe even save a buck or two on your healthcare? We call it Hancock Health. So if you're looking for smart, safer, affordable care, head east to Hancock Health, where we're making health possible for the people of East Central Indiana and beyond.
All right, the Colts have 90 players on their roster right now. That will be cut down to 53 just a couple weeks before the regular season. There are a couple preseason games and plenty of training camp before those final cuts are made. But nevertheless, we have just a couple of practices to evaluate what we have seen and give some opinions on who could make the roster, who could get cut from the roster, surprisingly. So that's what we're going to do right now. Just do a little bit of a kind of a bottom of the roster, bottom of the 53 discussion here. We'll start with players that might be a little bit more on the bubble. Some veterans who have to be fighting for their jobs right now. 3 players that I think that each of us will give 3 players that could be on the outs at the end of training camp. And to get to 3, I think, is tough, Joe, with this team as veterans, to be fair. Like, I have 3 guys who are NFL veterans here, like who are not rookies or second-year guys.
You don't want to be like, the undrafted free agent.
Right, exactly. That's not a veteran. No, like we're talking about, like if you're saying Bobby Okereke might not make the team, like that's kind of like what we're talking about here. Like guys in that vein. Which Bobby is not on my list of guys who will not make the team. He will be the
I don't even have anyone that strong.
No, like no one even close to that strong. So I do have 3 guys though that are quote unquote NFL veterans that will be at the end of the day kind of on the chopping block perhaps. When all is said and done. So
start with the one I think we both have.
Yeah.
Ben Banagoo.
Yeah, he's the obvious choice right now because he was on last year too. He had a pretty good preseason. He made the roster, and then he proceeded not to play at all. So there was clearly something last year that like he could not crack into the starting lineup, whether it was
or even the backup line.
or even the back of the lineup. He just never saw the field. I don't know if Matt Eberflus just thought he didn't fit in the system with his skill set, or if there's something, the switch flipped during the regular season where he just kind of fell behind. But Banagoo's certainly on there. The thing that's in his favor, Joe, is this is the last year of his rookie contract, so the money he has going to him is already guaranteed. So if you cut him, you're not saving anything that way. So Chris Ballard can't cut him and then use money that might be going toward him towards someone else. You're going to have to pay him anyway, regardless. And so Banagoo is certainly one that he has some things going for him, and he has some things. He's really been running with the 2s the entire training camp. He's the backup Leo right now behind Yannick Ngakoue, so we're seeing a lot of him against Bernard Ryman out there in one-on-ones or in 11-on-11 drills. So that's I agree. That's number 1. The first guy we think as a 4-year veteran, Ben Banagoo could be fighting for his job at the end of this training camp.
And I mean, I guess I'm kind of arguing the other direction here. Another thing he has going for him is brand new coaching staff, fresh start. I think that Leo position kind of fits who he is as a smaller, speedier pass rusher. But we saw it last year where there was training camp buzz. They said he looked good. He made some plays during the preseason, and then just nothing during the regular season. I've heard it again this year. Banagoo makes a good play, tweet comes down, but until he actually does it during the regular season, I think he's kind of the top significant veteran or noteworthy veteran that's on the chopping block.
I agree. And what you just said there kind of reminded me of another observation, so I'll drop this in here real quick from training camp, is that Yannick Ngakoue is not a big dude. Like he doesn't really look like a defensive end, especially when you're standing up against like a Taekwon Lewis or a Dio Dangbo, guys that are big defensive ends that also play inside or can play
that
inside.
doesn't help him either.
No, it doesn't, for sure. Like he looks a whole lot more like Robert Mathis than he does those other guys, who is the undersized speed guy. And you put him on that Lucas Oil Stadium turf, and he was an absolute game wrecker. So that's certainly what the Colts hope that Ngakoue can be. And that's like when you're an NFL team, you have to build your roster. Like you can't build your roster the same in Indianapolis as you do in Miami, or as you do in Green Bay, or as you do in Pittsburgh, or as you do in Los Angeles. You can't do it because you have different field turf or grass. You're inside or outside. It's cold weather or warm weather. Good football is played differently in all those areas. And this is something that I think is vastly underreported on or underexplained, I think, in the general sense, in the media out there, whatever you would have it. So, like, to be successful in Indianapolis, those Colts teams of the Peyton Manning era were dynamic and high flying on offense and multiple and very much rhythm timing based, which is really good in indoor, like domed.
And you can control the
conditions.
variables.
Exactly.
more.
You can't do that in Green Bay. You just can't.
And
You
that's
can't
why the
do
Colts
that
struggle in the
Pittsburgh.
playoffs, where they'd be playing in snow in New
In
England.
exactly. Year after year.
Raining in San Diego.
You hit it right on the head completely. And that's why Freeney and Mathis were so good, because they were undersized defensive end that you could get upfield faster than a left tackle or a right tackle could backpedal every time, because, once again, set conditions with that field turf, boom, they're past them already. They're going after the quarterback. And if your offense has already established a lead with Peyton Manning, then they're going to be throwing more often than they want to. So you know that you can just attack the quarterback over and over again.
So you're saying Yannick's going to be the new Mathis?
Exactly. Yannick Ngakoue is going to be the new Robert Mathis.
I love it.
Dave Griffith said it first right here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast. Let's get to our second player, veteran, who is in trouble. And I'll go first. I'm going to go with Rodrigo Blankenship, Hot Rod. This is going to be his third year in the league. And Chap talks about this all the time when he's in here with us, saying that Rodrigo set all these rookie records, but you cannot ignore his numbers when the field goals get long at 46 plus. He does not have good numbers. I believe it was 3 for 8. And I don't know if it was just last year or if that's a 2-year.
I think that might have been a 2-year
So,
thing.
but still, like, to only have 8 field goal attempts that of 46 yards or more, like, I know that Frank wants to be aggressive at that point in the field.
Part of that's
like,
him
yes,
going
if you have
for it.
4th and 3 on the 34-yard line, Frank likes to go for it. So that'll bring down his attempts. But nevertheless, when you get your attempts, you got to hit better than 50% for sure. And Rod hasn't done that. At the end of today's practice, they kicked 2 50-yard field goals because they did 2-minute drill at the end. So they did the 2-minute as far as the offense could get them. They got him to the 32-yard line, which is a 50-yard field goal. Rod came out, he hit his, and it looked good. It was good. I mean, the kick looked good. And it had some length to it beyond the 50, which we've seen him go short on 50 or 51, 52-yard attempts. Like, I'm not talking about 58-yard attempts.
Was there defense on these kicks? Like, was
It
someone
was
trying to
not the
block
full
it?
rush. Like, it was, they kind
Okay.
of snapped and stood up a little bit. So it was not the full rush.
Because I hear he's making him in practice. That's what the reports are. But when it's in the game and someone's trying to block it, it seems to be a different story for him.
Plenty of leg in practice. And then Jake Verity came on, did the same thing behind him. The ball came off his leg differently. You cannot deny it. It went for, like, Rod's was good, and it had room to spare from 50. Verity's had more room to spare, and it just shot up higher than Rod's did. It just did. So you look at who has the stronger leg. There's no doubt that Verity has the stronger leg among these two guys. And if you want to be able to kick those longer field goals, history says that Rodrigo has not been the guy to choose in that instance. So, like, but at the same time, like, this goes to, like, how reliable can you be short? And if Verity isn't good short either, then who cares at the end of the day if he has the boomer of a leg?
So I guess what matters is if Verite is just as consistent from short as Hot Rod is, Verite is going to win the job.
Yes.
Because he has a tiebreaker with the bigger leg.
Yes, 100%. So Hot Rod's definitely on the list of veterans who have to watch out for their jobs come the end of the year to me. Who's your number 2 guy?
I refuse to put Hot Rod on there because
you would.
he was declared as my boy, so I'm not going to do that to him. This will make more sense when I say who I think might make the team.
Okay, please explain.
But I have offensive tackle Dennis Kelly. This is a team with several backup offensive tackles who you think could be decent guys, including Spriggs, Ryman, and another guy I'm going to mention has a long shot to make the team. And Kelly injured his knee. They said the reports are he's going to be out several weeks, which does not help when you're trying to make a new football team. He's 32 years old. He's a veteran. I think we kind of know what he is at this point. If anything, he might be on the downswing of his career. I don't expect him to be cut, but when I go through these guys, we said it was kind of hard to come up with these guys. Totally. Kelly was someone I identified as he might not make it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So far, like today, out of practice, Spriggs is a guy that they actually moved inside to guard. And He was running with the twos, but he has been a tackle in the past, so he could be a swing guy, that could either do tackle or guard. I think they're trying to see how good he is on the inside right now.
Kind of like Pryor did last year.
Yeah, exactly like Pryor did last year. But yeah, I think Kelly's a good one to throw in there. So I think I know who one of your three who might make the team might be then. Reading into things. All right, who's your third player then? And then I'll wrap up with my third, a veteran who might just have to be looking out for his job here as Colts training camp wraps up in a couple weeks.
My third guy here I have is Phillip Lindsay. He's someone who a lot of people, including myself, were excited about when they signed. He has a couple 1,000-yard rushing seasons in his past, but those are several years behind him now. Those are 3-4 years behind him. He was not efficient, very efficient rushing last year. I get it. It's with Houston, Miami, teams with bad offensive lines, so I'm not going to completely hold that against him. But I've seen a couple of reports that C.J. Verdell has looked pretty good out there. I know the Colts like Deion Jackson, and Deion Jackson, the guy who gives them special teams value. So I think it's not a given that Phillip Lindsay makes a team. He might be looking for a new one come September.
Yeah, I think Lindsay was my third too, and so I don't want to get too much into it. You made every point there. I think, like I said earlier, with running backs, you really have to judge them in the preseason games because they're actually being tackled, taken to the ground, and trying to fight through things. But
sure.
Like I like Lindsay, like he's shifty. He is like he has a difference maker there, and like his shiftiness, he can change directions like that, and he's explosive and he's off, which is his strength, and which is why he didn't do so good running dive for over and over and over again with Houston or with Miami last year, two of the worst rushing teams in the NFL. So yeah, I think I agree with you. Like I said, Lindsay's there. Another name that is a quote unquote veteran is Kiki Kuti. It's really between him and Des Patman probably for that fifth receiver spot. If the Colts carry 5 receivers, if they carry 6, he might be safe there. But nevertheless, Kiki Kuti. He's also been a backup kick returner though, so he has a little bit of ability to be that guy there as well behind Isaiah Rodgers if the Colts want to keep him on the roster in that type of role too.
In that vein, a little honorable mention who I didn't think was noteworthy enough to put on here was Mike Strawn, just because
he's not a veteran to me. Yeah,
he's not a veteran. He had a lot of hype last year, but he's hurt right now. I think he's going to be a practice squad.
He's not making the 53. There's a 0% chance that he's making the 53-man roster. So that's why he will be cut. And he's not a veteran to me. So anyway. Yeah.
Which hurts because I liked Mike Strawn.
I know, I'm not trying.
Guy.
Yeah, I'm not trying to badmouth him.
No, I don't think you are.
I'm telling you how it is. All right, 3 roster long shots who will make the team, guys who will surprise and beat somebody out and make it to the 53-man. From my perspective, my first one, of course, is Sterling Weatherford, being my guy there at linebacker. He's looked good out there. There's actually another linebacker I have that I think has looked better that I'm going to get to in a minute. But I obviously, you know me, I have to include the Hamilton Heights guy out here because he's out there, he's doing his thing. He's out there on kick return as well, or on kick coverage, and he's a big guy who moves faster than other bigger guys who are his size. I think if you have that type of talent, you're going to find a space for him on special teams. As long as he keeps up on the defensive end, I think Sterling Weatherford has an NFL special teams future with the Colts this year.
And he's a guy I included as well. It was, I hope I'm not ruining your other guy, but it was between him and JoJo Domann for me.
You son of...
And I knew I couldn't include them both because the Colts are already 4 linebackers deep with Shaq Leonard, Bobby Okereke, EJ Speed, and your boy Zaire Franklin.
That's right.
I think they're only going to keep 5.
Okay.
And it's going to be between those two. The guy for me who, instead of Kelly, if he can't come back and if he can show something this camp, Jordan Murray, offensive tackle. He was a guy who played at North Texas. Last year, he played in Canada. 6'9", 36-inch arms. He's kind of that ball of clay that you hope you can mold into something that can be really special. I think there's a chance that he's someone who makes the team at tackle if he shows enough that he's not just developmental. He's someone who can come in and play if he had to, but who has a much higher ceiling than someone like Dennis Kelly.
Mm-hmm. So who's next on your list? 3 roster long shots who will make the team.
My final one here, I have Marcel Dapo, the defensive back coming over from Germany. I've heard a couple reports that he's made a play or two out there. Extremely athletic guy. And I think there's a spot for him as that 4th safety on the roster. They got obviously Blackman, Nick Cross, and Rodney McLeod, but I think there's a chance that he beats out someone like Armani Watts for that 4th safety spot. And someone with his athleticism can do some damage on special teams.
Yeah, I think there is that open spot at safety for sure. There's a because you have McLeod, you have Cross, you have Blackman that are all roster locks. Right now, you've got a guy like Armani Watts who's played back there before, and then your rookie Rodney Thomas, 7th round pick out of Yale, and Dabo.
I think wherever they want to put King, the special teamer out of New England that they signed, whether they want to mark him as a linebacker or a safety, is probably just going to come down to roster spots. But
exactly.
Who was yours? Did you want to talk about Doman for a little bit?
I didn't know. Yeah, like Doman is on, like Weatherford and Doman are 1 and 2 for me.
You said you thought he was maybe playing a little better out there?
He's absolutely, especially like he seems to be around the ball a lot, which is one of the highest compliments you can give a linebacker. Like he always seems to be right there. I think he would be a big tackles guy if he was a starter in this type of a system. So he's looked good. Go Big Red, Nebraska product. Yeah. And I've been really impressed with him. I think that once again, it's hard, like running backs, it's hard to judge linebackers, especially in the run game, because you don't know if you're in the right place, Joe. Like I said, he's in the right place. That's step 1. Yeah. Step 2 is bringing the guy down.
Get ran over.
So yeah, exactly. Maybe after 2 preseason games, we'll be like, geez, JoJo Doman, why was I ever so high on him in the first place? Well, it's because he's always in the right spot on a lot of these plays. So if he can just take that next step and bring the guy down, then I think there's a chance that he could find a role on special teams.
And it makes sense, right, that he might be a little farther along coming from Nebraska than someone like Weatherford, who played at the Miami of Ohio. Yep. Doman's a guy who, the reports out of college, he was good in coverage at the linebacker position. He ran in the 4.6, so he's got some speed as well. I like one of those 2 guys to make the team. They just have so many good linebackers that I think they're only going to have spot for 1.
Yeah. So that's not an unreasonable conclusion to draw. Like the Colts have only carried 7 linebackers once with under Chris Ballard. So, and with only 3 guys starting there, is just limited spots. My final guy, and this is definitely a bottom of the roster type guy. I think a receiver that has been really good in training camp has been Ethan Fernea, a wide receiver out of UCLA, a rookie, undrafted guy. He's more of a slot receiver, so he's gotten the chance because DeMichael Harris has been hurt as well as a name just from the past. Number 12 on the sidelines at Colts camp, all too familiar refrain from the past. But number 7 in Fernea, the rookie out of UCLA, is I think he's been really good. Like, you're not asking him to attack down the field. You're asking him to do some really short routes, some good quick change of pace routes, some good timing routes with the quarterback. And he's been on the same page as Nick Foles or Sam Ellinger, so they found him a little bit here and there. Do I think he's going to make the team? If you if you make me pick 53, no, I don't. But he's a guy that if he has a strong training camp, I'm not putting it past him. And also, if he has a strong training camp, I wouldn't put it past him making it somewhere else because he's looked pretty good out there to me.
Okay, I want to pull up the notes. I think he was someone that I wrote down when I kind of did the scouting for the training camp previews as somebody who played a little bit of running back in college as well. So maybe he's someone who can do a little something with the ball in his hands after he catches it over the middle.
Yep, that's quite possible. So like I said, I think he's looked pretty good. There's a couple guys in the back end wide receivers that haven't been so bad. So I've been happy with the depth. That's not saying I think I think that all the problems, quote unquote problems at wide receiver are solved. The top group still has to prove themselves completely. Like we can sit here, Joe, and say that everything looks good, but at the same time, this is just training camp. You're set up in positions a lot to win and to succeed. And
yes,
really,
I don't think we've said a negative word really.
Yeah,
during
not
this
too
podcast.
many. No, and nobody's really had a bad training camp. Like you even look back at a guy like Kylan Granson, who people like there was a groundswell that he did not have the best OTAs, didn't have the best offseason. He's looked fairly good in training camp too. The Colts are trying to get him the ball a lot. Like they really want him to be a thing.
I heard it was kind of like a pitch, like out of the backfield they got him, and he scored a touchdown.
He did,
on it.
yes. So Frank was laughing about that. He said, "You're never going to hear the end of it from Kylan," because he likes to talk a little bit. Kylan does. Like he's a smiling guy who's yapping here and there. He's not the biggest. Who can I compare? He's not Eric Ebron by any sense, but in a part he reminds me of that just a little bit with his attitude. He's not quite as full of himself as Eric Ebron was. We'll put it that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know. Kind of heading into it, like before training camp started, I was like, I don't think it's a lock that he makes a team because of all the other tight ends they brought in. I don't really feel that way anymore. I've seen some good reports, and I know they want a specific role for him.
Yep.
So that makes a big deal.
Yeah, the smaller you can make the role, and especially, and that's what they're going to have to do with this pass catching group because you have one dynamic player in Pittman who you think can do a lot of different things. After that, you want to be multiple, so you want to spread it around. So spread it around to guys who are doing what they're good at, you know? And not a lot of teams have a lot of teams have that. Look at someone like the Bills. Like you have Stephon Diggs, who is one of the best receivers in the NFL. But then after that, you have Gabriel Davis, who's a good wide receiver and has proven himself in a limited role in the NFL and has done really a very fine job for himself in that role. So that was just the first example that came to mind.
And then you got Isaiah McKenzie, who's kind of that smaller, get him the ball in space, more of a gadget guy.
Yep.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I got
you. You don't need two dynamic, amazing veteran wide receivers. Exactly, and that's what we've been calling for all offseason because these other guys just haven't proven themselves on the Colts roster. Guys like a Gabriel Davis or an Isaiah, they have proven themselves in their roles that they can be effective in the league. So these young Colts receivers and pass catchers, although they have potential, they have not proven themselves in their specific roles. So that's kind of that is what is going to be, to me, just the key to this season is can multiple, not even just one, can multiple guys live up to their potential as pass catchers and find and carve out their specific roles, be efficient in those roles, and give Matt Ryan more than just Michael Pittman to throw the ball to.
When you got 2 minutes left and you're down and you have the ball and they double team Michael Pittman Jr., who else can you rely on?
Exactly. And that's kind of something that we saw today, doing 2-minute drill. The Colts got a little bit down the field in 2-minute drill, but they didn't get all the way down to score a touchdown. They only got to the 32-yard line.
That's a long kick.
Exactly, it is. And like I said, that's 50 yards. They both made them, but you want to do better than that. Like you want to get them at least inside the 20 for crying out loud. And then in the end zone, obviously, to win the game instead of maybe just tie the game with a 3 or whatever.
Forbid you're down 7.
Right, yeah. Then forget it. You're going for it. Yeah. So anyway, we appreciate you listening to this Colts Blue Zone podcast. You can listen every week as we deliver you some new content. Next week, we'll be previewing a game, Joe. A game preview. Yes, sir.
In Buffalo.
As the Colts will be in Buffalo, yes. 9 days from today to take on the Bills. Apt that we were just discussing the Bills, in fact, for the preseason opener. You can read Mike Chappell's work online, fox59.com, cbs4indy.com. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at DaveG_sports. Joe is at RotoStreetJoe. Mike is at MChappell51. And we together are the at Colts Blue Zone for the podcast. We'll see you next week here.